Hi, my name is Tiari Siguenza from Ballincollig, and you are watching the Her Sport Energia AIL show, sponsored by Energia. Think of the possibilities.
Hello everyone, you're very welcome back to a new season of the Her Sport Energia AIL Rugby Show. I'm Lauren Tinkler, joined by Irish international Hannah Tyrrell here. We're very excited for a new season of the AIL League and ready to get into it, I suppose. So Hannah, any updates from your summer? How are you getting on? How is your daughter?
I've had a very busy summer, I suppose, just trying to spend as much time as possible with my daughter. And obviously, I was playing football with Dublin and back to my club. So got away to the Olympics as well for a couple of days to watch the Rugby Sevens girls. So yeah, it was a really nice summer. Don't really feel too rested or relaxed, but that's life, I suppose. And yeah, just looking forward to a good rugby season ahead, both with club, province, and with the international series.
Brilliant. And yeah, speaking of the Olympics, what was that like watching the Sevens out there?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was really surreal, I suppose, being part of the squad that had tried to make Rio 2016 and then obviously Tokyo 2021. It was a really weird feeling being there and watching the girls, when you would kind of, obviously try to achieve that same dream, but it was just such an amazing moment for Irish rugby and for women's rugby, because these girls, some of them like Lucy Mulhall and Emily Murphy-Crowe, have grafted for a very long time. That was their third attempt at reaching the Olympics, and finally they got there to Paris. And in fairness to the French, they put on a ridiculous show with the Olympics in general, and the stadium was looking good, the pitch was good, there was some phenomenal matches on show, and yeah, it was brilliant to just be there and to witness some of it and witness history for that Irish Sevens team. Look, talking to the girls afterwards, I know they're probably a little bit disappointed in some of their performances, but they should be so proud for what they achieved in the first place, and to be the first Olympians in women's rugby in the Sevens code is phenomenal, and all eyes are on LA 2028 when they'll be looking to make an even bigger impact.
Exactly. No, it was fantastic. And like you said, there's a lot of experienced players that went out there, and any new players that you noticed really coming up the ranks and got their time to shine.
Yeah, I think a good thing about that team, I suppose, is that while there's been a couple of girls there who've been around a very long time, and really brought that experience, they've always had some new players coming in, and we'll be talking about her a good bit on this show, I feel, but Erin King really had a breakout tournament. She, a couple of seasons ago, she was playing for Old Belvedere, lighting up the AIL as a flanker, and she's been in the Sevens programme, I think, a couple of years now, and she's still very young. I think she's about 20 years of age, if I'm not wrong. Sorry, Erin, if I'm making you a little bit older than you are, but I just thought in that tournament she was brilliant. She plays as a forward. She had some fantastic carries and turnovers. Her graft was brilliant. Her passing has come on so much, and then obviously she had that iconic lift that I think was shared all across social media, and I don't think people actually realise how difficult it is. So she was obviously lifting Emily Lane to try and catch a kickoff, and like with Emily, practically her head facing the floor, managed to hold on to her, and the strength of that to hold on and bring her down safely was phenomenal. And like at no point did she ever look like she was even struggling, and it was just a huge moment for her and for the team, and it was pivotal in that game for them to hold on to possession. But I just think she has had the best tournament, right at the pinnacle moment for her team, and I was really, really impressed by her, and I really hope that she can be one of these younger ones that drives this next generation of Sevens players forward.
No, absolutely. I think, watching her literally carry Emily Lane on her back, like, it was incredible. Especially, it did go viral on social media, but I suppose seeing that kind of athleticism and that drive and mentality to do that in a moment of it's pure adrenaline. How does an athlete get to that level, or how do you think she's developed these kind of traits?
Look, I think, everyone in that Sevens programme have put in a tremendous amount of work on and off the pitch, sevens is an incredibly physical game. You have to be extremely fit, fast. Your footwork has to be brilliant. Your mobility, tackling skills, all has to be top level. But there's a huge mental aspect to that game, and I think that's one thing, particularly the last kind of 15 months or so that Irish team have worked on, is the mental side of sevens and how to get through the torture and the pain and kind of finish out big moments, because they probably haven't done that in big games in the past. And I suppose for her it happened very, very quickly, that particular moment for her, and she probably didn't actually think too much in it, but all of that mental fortitude that they've built up over a while was probably just her saying, hold on, I don't want to drop her, and let's get through this. And look, it was brilliant, a brilliant moment for her. I hope it's a photo she has framed in her house that she'll be able to look back on, because it's a pretty cool photo, and not many people can do what she did, but that whole team have been through an awful lot of adversity over the last couple of years. And so just to get to the Olympics in the first place took an awful lot of mental strength, and I know they worked on that an awful lot.
No, absolutely. And I suppose, of course, coming off the back of that, then we've got that historic win over the world champions of New Zealand. So 29-27 to Ireland. Just watching that clash, I suppose, like, where to begin? What did you make of it?
Look, well, I obviously woke up the next morning and to be honest, I was in total shock that we won, and utter disbelief. And that is not to take away from the girls or anything else. You know, they were going into a game in WXV1, and remember, they were in WXV3 last year, you know, and for me, I was very fearful that it was going to be a big jump. I knew these girls were on an upturn. You know, they'd had a tough couple of, let's say, a tough 2 years, and they'd been really rebuilding last year with Scott Bimad. But I just thought WXV1 might be too big a jump. And, you know, it's a very daunting first game against the world champions New Zealand. And I was in such disbelief, but I was so happy that they had achieved it. And watching back the game, like, the girls, it was so obvious. They obviously had a game plan in place. They knew exactly the weaknesses of New Zealand they wanted to target, but they had such utter belief in each other that they could actually do this. And look, not to take anything away, I think we have caught New Zealand in a bit of a downturn. They probably came into it a little bit maybe overconfident or didn't think it would be much of a challenge, and they got caught in their heels. And, like, in fairness, fair play to Ireland for that, because the 15s game has not been in a good place for a while, and they need these huge inspiring wins. Obviously before this they beat Australia the weekend before, and these are two huge wins that in the past this team wouldn't have beaten, and something has changed, whether their resilience, their belief, their attacking structure, whatever Scott has instilled in them is working, and they are full of confidence. They're going to go into this game this weekend against Canada knowing that it's going to be a huge challenge, as Canada trounced France essentially, and they need to be able to back that up. But I have pure confidence that they have that, and we are building and developing world-class players who can compete with any team in the nation and in the world, and we've just shown that. And I'm really excited that we can back this up, bring that confidence then into the Six Nations, and really give England a run for their money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. And like you said, under the coaching of Scott, it's obviously working. And then of course you have players like Aoife Wafer, 21 years old, you know, 2 tries in that game. Tell us about Aoife. What can you make of her game? And
where do we begin? Every time this girl, like, she's been incredible for Ireland and for her club Blackrock and Leinster and all the rest. Every time she's able to step on the pitch over the last year or two, she's unfortunately over that period of time also been blighted by injuries, so we haven't got to see her on a consistent run to show what she can do. But she is absolutely devastating. She is a workhorse, and I think that's one of her biggest attributes. She has this fierce determination to impact every single play on both sides of the ball. And for someone at 21 years of age to shoulder the burden and take on the responsibility to score these tries or to make these big tackles and get these turnovers is absolutely massive, and it's exactly the type of player we need in that team, because we can't always just rely on the older, more experienced players to make these decisions. I think it's been happening a while, but she obviously scored her 2 tries from the back of a scrum, and she usually plays as a flanker, but the decision to actually move her from there and switch her with Brittany Hogan has absolutely been immense. I have never seen somebody with the destruction as a ball carrier, but also with the speed and the mobility that she has, finished the way she does. So against Australia, she threw a beautiful dummy pass and ran a little stutter step to put her player off. Against New Zealand, she just ran at 4 defenders and said, I'm just going to take you on, and scored anyway. And she just has this deftness that we don't usually see with forwards. And I don't mean to be negative towards forwards, but she is a player that genuinely has so much more to learn, but the skills and the talent that she has now is absolutely phenomenal. And for me, right now in form, she is one of the best players in the world, and she showed that the weekend, and she is consistently showing that. From the other side, I just really hope that we manage her a little bit, that we make sure that she keeps injury free, and so that we can see her playing on a consistent basis, because she has had a lot of injuries. She is only very, very young, and I would hate to see any more injuries happen. And so as much as I want to see her play every minute and impact every play, I also want to make sure that we're keeping her healthy and in a good way, for her sake and for ours, so we can continue to watch the good work she does.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, such a young athlete, you really have to nurture those talents, I suppose. And yeah, hopefully that she's longevity, in the sport is so important. And I suppose just looking at AIL and the league of athletes coming up through the ranks there, how did that help Aoife reach, her career now, and what can it do for other players?
Yeah, look, like if you look at that WXV squad, or even the squad that was playing against Australia, the number of players who had been playing AIL over the last number of years, I think was 15 to 20, which is a huge amount. We obviously have a number of players playing overseas in the Premier 15s in England, which is obviously brilliant because they play a very high level there too. But the likes of Erin King, Aoife Wafer, Niamh O'Dowd have all been developed through the AIL, and where they first started playing and got their exposure and started putting in these big performances. And then obviously were recognised and went through provincial and the Celtic Challenge campaign, and then obviously made their way into a green jersey. And it's brilliant to see that. Faith Avaway is another, I know she's not involved in that, but she was a training panelist and has seen her way through, and it's a massive step to get these young players playing AIL first for their club, getting exposure at that level, and then seeing can they make the next step up to provincial or international. And look, Aoife Wafer is the perfect example of that. A couple of years ago she was playing for Blackrock, a devastating player, but little did we know that what she was doing at Blackrock was nothing to what she was going to do on the international stage in a green jersey. And that's what young players, and any player, not even young players, but any player in the AIL who has aspirations to wear the green jersey, or even just wear their provincial jersey, is look at what those players have done, figure out what they have done to get there, and try and mimic it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like we were saying, Scott Buman, he's making, great progress with the team. And will he be looking at the AIL and looking out for possible prospects?
Yeah, absolutely. I should really hope so. And, for us, that obviously if we were to look at a development system, internationally we now have an under-20s and an under-18 set up, and there's 7 setups underage as well, which obviously recognises players who have their talents at a younger age, and then we try and nurture them through those systems as well. But there are always kind of late bloomers, or players who come into the game late in AIL, who eventually end up moving up. Look at, for the WXV squad, she hasn't got a cap yet, but Katrina Finn was named as a training panellist initially and not going to travel to the WXV1 tournament in Canada, but eventually obviously worked so hard in training and was recognised for what she did with UL Bows and Munster, that he brought her along. Now, she might not get a single minute over at the tournament there, but what she will get is an awful lot of exposure, a lot of coaching at elite level, and then she'll be able to bring that back to her club and develop it. But of course, Scott is definitely looking at the AIL. He might have to watch back a few weeks because he's a little bit busy right now. But I think any coach from any head coach of any national team would be mad to not look at the highest league that we have for women here and see what's available there. Like Niamh O'Dowd is another example. Really working away, working hard, in the front row for Belleville for a couple of years, and has developed over the last couple of years. She wasn't a starter for Ireland last year, and this year, the last couple of games, she started and shown her worth. And it's brilliant to see that. So these young players are showing in the AIL they can do it and showing promise, and then they get nurtured into international level.
Absolutely. And would you say that, I suppose, coming from the WXV3 up to WXV1, is that going to bring on the athletes a lot and give them that encouragement? Yeah,
like as I said, I did initially think that WXV3 to WXV1 might be a little bit too steep a jump for us, considering the performances that we had put in 2 seasons ago in the Six Nations. I think it was brilliant for us to have WXV3 last year to give us confidence, get these wins, mould this team together under such a short space of time, and for Scott to kind of try and instill some of his coaching values and get it together while not playing teams that would be extremely difficult or highly ranked. And so, as I said, it allowed this team to build a bit of confidence. Then they went into the Six Nations and did quite well, and so now they're into WXV1. And look, coming third in last year's Six Nations, I think, was a little bit of a surprise to those outside that inner circle. Obviously, those teams had that belief, that those girls in that team had the belief, and they achieved that by beating Scotland. And it's brilliant. We qualified for the World Cup, gave us a goal to look forward to, and put us into WXV1. Personally, at the time, I kind of had wished we were put into WXV2 because I felt it was more our level. I felt, as I said, the WXV1 jump would be a bit too big, and WXV2 would give us the confidence going into the Six Nations and the World Cup, just what we needed to kind of go in the right direction. However, I'm very glad to say that I was wrong, and we are well capable of being in WXV1. If we can keep putting in performances like we did against New Zealand, we can show teams that we're not just here to take part, and we're not just here to be another number, statistic, or to run in 10 tries, that we actually can put up, and make these games interesting and get some points there and shock the world and kind of change the narrative a little bit, and have teams looking over their shoulder going, oh God, I have to play Ireland now, and I know they're tough in defence, and I know that they're going to give us everything for 80 minutes, and they've scored loads of tries, so our defence is going to have to be brilliant. That's what I want teams to think of us and to be scared. Prior to the game, the New Zealand coach, when asked about a few players, he name-checked players without actually naming players. So he was like, oh, the one in the red scrum cap, about like Aoife Wafer. Oh, the 10 with the left boot instead of Dana O'Brien. And incidentally, it was those two players who had momentous moments in the game against New Zealand. Like, obviously, Aoife Wafer got the 2 tries. Dana O'Brien kicked the winning conversion. Like, I'm sure that New Zealand coach knows their name now, and I want other teams to be like, geez, we have to watch out for Aoife Wafer, we have to watch out for Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe, Stacey Flood has a brilliant boot on her there, Emer Considine is great in the air, so we have to be aware of that. That's what I want teams doing, looking over their shoulder and being really worried, as opposed to thinking, it's just Ireland, we could probably beat them. So that's what he's instilled, this confidence, this belief. The girls have nothing to lose now. They probably, and that's a good thing, I think, to go into WXV1 and go, no one expects us to win. Why not give it a go? We think we're good enough. We have the attacking plan we think will fit. We know their weaknesses. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Ireland is a force to be reckoned with, and sometimes when you are the underdog, you don't have that pressure, and you can kind of go in just, like all guns blazing, really. I suppose. Absolutely. Yeah, no fear or anything. No, that's great. And I suppose pivoting from that excitement, we've had a brilliant weekend of the AIL. So there were a lot of wins picked up by Galwegians, UL Bows, Railway Union, Suttonians and Wicklow. UL Bows, of course, champions there last year. So if you were a betting woman, who would you be putting your money on to win this year? Would you say UL Bows again, or?
Yeah, look, I think it's very hard after one weekend of games to try and really pick out a standout from that and say these are going to be the winners at the end of the year. You obviously have to take into account a lot of players missing because of that WXV1 who may come back into their team and have a massive impact over the course of the season. Like, that being said, obviously UL Bows last year started right out the gun, and were the dominant team throughout, and eventually ended up as AIL winners. So going by that trend and looking at the results of the weekend, one team that I would say looked really, really good would be Railway Union. But again, there's probably been a trend over the last number of years that this league is probably separated into 2, where you have kind of a top 4 and then the rest. And even in that top 4, we started to see a real kind of gap between the top 2 of UL Bows and Blackrock last year, and then UL Bows and Railway, and then Blackrock and Belvedere kind of pulling up the bottom 2 of that 4. And so for me, looking at those results, UL Bows looked really strong again against a formidable opponent in Blackrock, but Railway Union were the stars of the show at the weekend, running in over 50 points against Old Belvedere, and thinking that they still have players to return from that is a very, very scary prospect. So my very, very early predictions that I definitely don't think I'll stick with are Railway.
Brilliant. No, it'll be an exciting season, especially thinking of all the players to come back as well. And that turnover between, I suppose, the Interpro season and then getting into the AIL, how are these players, you know, managing that kind of transition and getting their bodies essentially ready to go again?
Yeah, like, and that's probably the difficult thing. I think a lot of teams, like nearly every single team, is probably dealing with injuries or players who've been played an awful lot over the course of the Interpro series, and then off again with WXV1. So for a lot of players, it can be quite hard when you're in one setup, whether it's international or provincial, and then you have to come back to a club team, because often you're trying to remember the two different calls that they had and trying to learn your club's new set of calls again and trying not to get mixed up. You're trying to get into, it's a very different pace of the game. AIL would tend to be a little bit slower, a lot more focus on the forwards, carrying the ball a little bit more, whereas your provincial, your interprovincial, obviously because of the standard of players there, skill level's a lot better, tempo of the game's a lot better, even game management tends to be a little bit better. So for some players it's just an adjustment. Some click and jump in back to clubs straight away, no bother at all. They maybe haven't got as many minutes as they would like in the other tournaments, and so they're happy to get stuck back in. Others maybe have been played a little bit too much and might need a break here and there, so they're managed slightly, or maybe take a couple of games off just to get their head back into it and take a well-deserved break, because obviously we want the best players playing for their club as much as possible, whatever that standard is, whether it's provincial or international. We want them all playing for club, but we also don't want to see players overused, injured and all the rest. So it's hard in that regard for clubs. They want their best players playing as much as possible, but it is important to manage them and mind them, as I mentioned, with the likes of like Aoife Wafer and stuff, to make sure that when they need them, we're getting the best out of them, and everyone wins. Player wins and they're healthy, and then the club wins because they get to use them. So
brilliant. Yeah. And you mentioned Railway Union. Were there any other standout performances that you noticed over the weekend?
Well, I thought the Galwegians game, Ballincollig, I think it was a phenomenally tense and tight game, and I thought both sets of teams were absolutely brilliant, fighting right to the death. Obviously only one score in it in the end, but it's brilliant to see every single team really getting stuck in. First game of the season, there's always that bit of confidence, but a bit of eagerness. Everyone just wants to get going. It's been a long summer without competitive rugby, and so everyone's keen to get stuck in. You tend to get some really good games, but I just thought that was the most entertaining game for me at the weekend because of how tight it was, the nervy finish, so much kind of on each time everyone had the ball, and there was a lot of pressure, and the crowd really got into it as well, which was brilliant.
No, it's brilliant, and we will be sure to get into all of that coming up right up after this. I had the opportunity of chatting to Christy Haney last week about the Tackle Your Feelings campaign, so do stick around because we will be back with all of the Energia AIL action right after this.
Well, if you wanted to start off with talking about the campaign of Tackle Your Feelings, it's fantastic what the initiative is and everything that it's achieving for the young athletes and students. So if you want to tell us why, maybe it's close to your heart and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible initiative. It's a 8-week lesson plan program that TYF have developed, and it's free for teachers. And they have the course material there, and it is a way to educate teenagers, kind of 14 to 19 would be the target audience, about ways to deal with challenges and mental health and mental well-being, and what that looks like in application, whether it's to sport or to day-to-day life or their school academic career as well. And one thing that is great about the program is it gets kind of a new voice into the classroom. So part of the initiative is to have rugby players or different role models come down into the classroom, so that the students aren't just listening to their teachers or listening to their parents. It's somebody that they maybe have seen on telly or have heard about or doing something that they might aspire to be. So I just think it's a great thing that they've developed, and it's exciting to see it kind of play out.
No, it's brilliant, and it's great that you're an ambassador for it as well. And like you said, I think with students listening to maybe an outside voice who they don't hear from every day, it definitely sinks in that little bit more. Yeah. And I suppose right now, like, it's very prevalent that mental health is such an important aspect of every child's life. And I suppose even like an athlete yourself, say going through injuries or things like that, you do realize the importance of mental health. And I'm sure there's lots of things that you can relate to or maybe advise younger kids on.
Yeah, I suppose the one of the hardest things is you can't mentally prepare for an injury. Like you're not like, oh, I'm going to do that this weekend, and then these are the steps that I'll have in place. what you're planning for is a great performance, and then what's the next step up from there. So it's that mental kind of resilience to be able to snap back and be like, okay, I had no plans for this, and I have to create plans really fast. So and I say you can't prep for it, but you can kind of think to yourself before an injury happens, if something like that were to happen, what would my next steps be? And I'm incredibly lucky. I'm part of the IRFU network at the minute, where I have a huge support staff around me, and that kind of support network, whether that's my physio, like my current physio, or the management team, or then just my friends completely outside of rugby. They all make up my network. So I suppose my advice to anybody, to any athlete, or to anybody, whether it's a sports injury or kind of a high or a low of life, is that it all comes down to how quickly you can kind of make your next steps and plan something out for yourself. And then your support network is massive. So it always comes back to who you have around you and how they're going to help you.
100%. I'm sure you've been back and forth to the girls, as they're heading
100%,
away, over texts and things like that. And just like they're supporting you. I mean, you're so much support to them as well as they head into a big weekend too. And I'm sure you're giving them lots of support. And will you be watching from home, I suppose?
Yeah, 100%. I've been chatting to the girls a bit now. They're very busy. Obviously, it's match week, so it's all go for them at the minute. And then obviously the 8-hour time difference doesn't help. But I will know. Like I've been watching a bit of the training. We have a platform where we're able to watch that, so I'm kind of staying tuned in and seeing what they're at. And then I'll try to watch the match live, but I believe it's at 3 a.m. on Monday morning, so I might be watching it after.
Right, stay off your phone so you don't see any results.
I know, yeah. So that's why I'm like, will I just wake up early and I'll find my sleep later in the day? Yeah,
exactly. It might be hard to avoid.
Yeah.
And I saw that Emer Considine was saying that, say, when playing New Zealand, they kind of play in, I suppose, a slightly different sort of way. Like, what would you kind of have on that, or what would you say?
Yeah, so I've never played against New Zealand. I think it's been 7 or 8 years since the women's team have had the opportunity to play against them. And I think being able to play against an opposition that is unlike the teams that we see in the Six Nations, or even the teams that we saw last year against Dubai, is so important for us as we go into next year and into a World Cup year, where we need to see challenges that are completely new, and how we're going to adapt to them, and what we're going to do when we're kind of met with the unexpected, both from a physical aspect, but then mentally as well. Like, what are we going to do? What choices are we going to make as a team?
Brilliant. And coming off the back of such a big win against Australia there, what was maybe some of the key aspects of the game that Ireland just really got right on the day?
Yeah, I think our cohesion as a team was phenomenal, especially considering we had only been fully training together for 2 weeks before that. Now we had a really successful interpro season, which kind of put us on the front foot and in the right position to be able to come together as an Irish squad. But it was really exciting to see kind of the bonds on the pitch play out well. Like, we had people making line breaks, and we had, people off both shoulders, or making it to rocks early and blasting through them. So those kind of things are really heartening to see, and are going to put us in the right position for Canada.
Brilliant. And I suppose you're so experienced now, and you've captained Leinster, and there's maybe 4 girls who are getting their first cap for Ireland now this weekend. Sophie Barrett, Andrea Stock, Katie Heffernan, Katrina Flynn. Did you get to maybe give them a little bit of advice, or what would you advise them kind of going into their first cap match?
Yeah, just I suppose chatting to them in camp, and they're all so excited, and they're like, they have so much energy and kind of new experience, or sorry, new kind of perspectives to bring into the squad. So they're just as valuable to us as we are to them. And the only advice I'd give them, because they'll forget everything else, is the exact same advice that I was given. And it's the only thing I remember from my first cap, and it's to just enjoy every minute. Like, it's just such a whirlwind when you step onto the pitch, and, when you're singing the anthems and all of it, you just need to take it all in and be as present as you can.
No, it's huge. Yeah. And it's super exciting for them. Absolutely. And like that special feeling, say, similar to qualifying for the World Cup now. What was that like? And I'm sure you're still relishing that moment.
It was incredible. It was so funny, because everyone was just so excited about winning the match that it actually took a second for the shoe to drop, that it meant that we had qualified. So it was like the first kind of, the whistle went, there was the first wave of excitement, and then there was kind of like a pause. And then everyone was like, oh my gosh. Like, and like that second wave was unreal. It was a very cool experience.
Oh, that's great. I'm sure there were some celebrations to
Yeah,
follow as
100%.
well.
Yeah, you have to celebrate the good times. Yeah.
You do, absolutely, because they don't come around so
No.
often.
Yeah,
Sometimes you have the lows and you have the highs as well.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your time. And you're looking forward to the weekend ahead, I
Yeah, I
suppose.
can't wait. I can't wait to watch the girls. They're going to go well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, well, wishing you every bit of healing, and yeah, you'll be back. You'll be back in no time.
Cheers. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time. I'll
Thank
give it
you
back
so
to
much.
Well, we'll jump straight into the action because it was a very exciting weekend. Jumping into the Blackrock College and UL Bows match, it was Blackrock College 15, UL Bows 31. So on the Bows side, there's plenty of Munster players there coming off the back of the Interpros. What did you think of the likes of Alana McIlnerney in that match? Definitely a standout player.
Yeah, look, obviously Alana did really well in the Munster Interpros, and she, in the back three for them, she was really, really solid, and she adds an awful lot to this Munster backline, or this Munster backline, this UL Bows backline. But for me, this was a kind of a clash of the heavyweights, so to speak, in that these two teams have been incredibly dominant over the last number of years, throwing in obviously Railway Union to the mix there, but the forward packs of these two teams are really what made these teams tick in this particular game. UL Bows, obviously, they've had some, like Chloe Pierce has been a standout for them for the last number of years and kind of, again, led the show. Plenty of experience, has obviously Irish caps in the past, and Bows showed all their strength here. Blackrock took the lead, went 8-0 up. Obviously, Hannah O'Connor recently retired from rugby and all the rest, retired from international rugby, but she still has plenty of say in this team. They also have Judy Bobbitt is in doing a bit of assistant coaching, former Irish international, and used to play for Blackrock. And Blackrock took the lead, and it was a home game for them, so they knew that this Bows team coming in was going to be really strong. And they took the lead and held it for quite a while, and I was quite interested to see how UL Bows would respond, and they responded fairly emphatically, and they put 20 plus points on Blackrock without them responding, and it was their forwards who dominated all day long. Claire Bennett ends up as player of the match for them. She was brilliant, breaking tackles and all the rest. And what that UL Bows team do is they're coached so well. They know exactly when to pick and go when the opposition are scrambling, and then they know exactly when to move it to their backline, to the likes of McInerney and co, who can do the damage and find the space when it's on. But they just have such a good mix of youth and experience. And with Kay Flannery at 10, who I think this is technically her third season in the AIL, still such a young 10 that we're trying to develop. She's really finding partnerships and figuring out what it's like to be a 10 and having the confidence to go for it a couple of times. Her kicking game has always been superb, and they just have a really good balance at the minute. And in fairness to them, they didn't really give Blackrock much of a chance after those 8 points. They didn't give them a sniff until near the end of the game, and it was fairly dominant in the end from UL Bows, and Blackrock kind of went home with their tails between their legs a little bit, I'd say, smarting from that defeat, because didn't really put up too much of a fight, and I really expected them to. Now obviously they're missing a couple of players, and that will impact them as the season goes on, but it's not how they would have liked to start their season at home, losing to one of their biggest rivals. So I'm sure UL Bows went home on the bus very, very happy indeed with their 5 points.
Right, of course. And looking back on last season's table, they were both, in the top 5. So, of course, the AIL is a very unpredictable season, but do you think they will be back at the top again this season?
Yeah, look, I think that those two teams, as I said, Bows, Belleville, Blackrock and Railway have made the top 4, I think, for the last 5+ years or so, or maybe. And I've no doubt that they'll be up there again. I do think there will be challengers to that 4th spot this year. I think other teams have made significant improvements, but I've no doubt that this one game, while it will hurt Blackrock, they'll come back, they'll get their wins, and this season it's a long campaign, so there's a lot of games left to be played. I wouldn't be ruling Blackrock out after one game.
Right, exactly. And like you were saying, the WXV can take some players out of this. So you've got some younger, maybe just more inexperienced players coming up into the AIL, and does this just give them that bit more of an experience? And now that they've got last season under their belt, maybe this season they'll be that bit more used to the whole works of things.
Yeah, I think, look, obviously, while it's great for players who get called away into international camps and tournaments and gives them opportunities, it also gives players back home opportunities to show that they can fill the void left by those international players. It creates a lot of squad depth, competition then in the squad, because when those internationals come back and they realise, oh, the girl who's been playing in my position has actually been amazing, they're like, I better up my game here to make sure I get my jersey back. And that only makes the team better. And absolutely, that exposure, that experience for players, who have to get up and get on with it really brings about a team morale. If you can get results while missing a couple of players here and there, and then those internationals returning only really give an added boost to it. So look, Blackrock, as I said, they'll be hurting, they'll be smarting a little bit, but they'll do a little review and they'll go into next week's game going with a renewed vigour, new ideas about how to do it, and shoring up that defence that kind of was a little bit leaky.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, absolutely. And you were saying Judy Bobbitt has come in as assistant coach, and also Andy Adams is stepping in as head coach. So what's that, I suppose, going to be like for the girls, and that kind of change of dynamic?
Yeah, look, changing's always tough. New coaches come in, they have new ideas, they might want to change up how you attack and the shape that you want to play with. They might be a coach that's more involved with backing your defence, and so you end up kicking a lot more for territory, and a lot of players have to get used to that. There's new calls, they might bring in new moves, and all about the team culture and how they actually coach the team, and the wording and the phrasing they use might be very different. So it takes a lot of adjustments, but I don't think it'll phase too many girls on any team that has a new head coach in. It takes a couple of weeks, they get plenty of time to bed into it, and you'll see over the first couple of games of the season that new moves might be tried and mightn't always work, or attacking shapes just a little bit off, but as the season goes on they'll obviously fit into that system a little bit more, and things will begin to flow a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on into the Galwegians Ballincollig match, like you mentioned, that was a good one to watch. So were there any standout players? I know we had the likes of Stacey Hanley, Chloe Casey, Grace Brown, Moran and Emily Foley. They're all putting in a good form. So who stood out to you in particular?
Look, I haven't watched that. It's hard to pick out one standout, because I think in team efforts you often will miss a player who does all the dirty work. I think in rugby in particular, people often catch the eye of the try scorer or someone who kicks the points, but it's actually the second rows who are putting in the hard yards and the big tackles and the turnovers and all the rest. But I've always been impressed every time she plays for Galwegians as Orla Dixon. She plays in the centres. I watched her for the Interpros, and she is a diminutive little back who manages to make yards every single time. She's not the biggest, she's not the strongest, but she makes herself count in tackles and carries, and she gets her teams out of so many holes. But that game in particular, again, and I've said this about the Bows Blackrock team, it was a battle of the forwards. Set piece was huge for both teams. Galwegians used a maul to score a try in the first half on the strength of their forwards, and then they used a scrum platform to finally get over the line. It took about 15 phases, I think, after that scrum, thanks to some dogged defence by Ballincollig. But it was really the forwards who were kind of giving it to each other. It was a huge battle in the scrum and in that front row to make any yardage count. And for these guys, it was a hugely entertaining game, and I think that's what we want to see more of. Obviously, I don't think those teams would like the games to be as tight for their own perspectives, but for me watching it, I found it really, really entertaining. I loved seeing that these games were close and it was tense, and that every pass, every tackle, every kick mattered. And long may we have more of those types of games to really get eyes on the games, because they're the matches that people turn to when they realise it's really tight, and they turn on for the last 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And now that the games are all being streamed, it's brilliant for people to be able to throw it on even if they can't make the match.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. No, the broadcast has been incredible, getting more eyes on the games. It's huge for the sport and everything. And I suppose the Galwegians, they won the Energia All-Ireland Women's Plate in 2023, and they also have Jack Clark taking over there. So how will they be looking to, I suppose, just up their game this season again?
Yeah, look, I think for those teams who finish outside the top four, obviously you're trying to avoid relegation. We're trying to avoid ending up bottom of the pile this year. But for those teams, they also want to try and break into that top four. And look, being realistic, I don't think that this year the likes of Suttonians or Galwegians or Ballincollig have the ability to win the league right now. I just don't think they have the depth just yet. They might have the players, but maybe not the experience and the game management to get over the line compared to some of the other bigger clubs, shall I say, who have been dominant and have those experienced players. But for them, their aim should be, we want to finish in that fourth position, that we want to break into that top four, break up those teams that have been there a while and try get into a semi-final. And then sure, when you're in the knockouts, you never know what'll happen, kind of thing. But for them, they've been a little bit just outside a couple of times. Galwegian a couple of seasons ago were really, really close. And look, winning silverware is brilliant, but the plate is not where people want to be if they're being realistic. So to break that top four would be brilliant achievement for any of those teams.
Exactly, no, absolutely. And I suppose another bit of managerial change has been over in the Ballincollig side with the head coach Helen Brosnan stepping in there. So what do you think she'll be looking to accomplish with the team?
So Ballincollig is a tricky one. Obviously they were coached by Fee Hayes a couple of seasons ago, who really set up really good structures underage and trying to develop a team and kind of lay the foundations for what would be a really good team over the next number of years. And last year they probably weren't as happy with some of the performances that they would have liked to have been. They weren't the most consistent team. And obviously Helen coming in, she's a lot of experience coaching with Munster and obviously knows Fee Hayes very well and Niamh Briggs and co. And so hopefully she can bring some of that experience, but also her own kind of coaching flair on that and how she wants to bring things. So it'll be interesting to see how she wants to structure her attack and what her kind of game plan will be, how she plans to defend and, in particular, shut down some of the threats that other teams have. We probably won't see some of these trends emerge or develop until probably round 4 or 5 when we really get to bed into things. But, for Ballincollig to have someone with her coaching pedigree is brilliant, and hopefully they can only make this, they can continue to grow and make that step up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And moving over to the Railway Union Old Belvedere match that we mentioned there earlier. So I suppose, Railway Union, they hit the ground running with this one. Really a dominant force there in the match.
Yeah, look, obviously, as a former Old Belvedere player, that was a tough watch. It was tough to see that result. And, I know a lot of the girls are feeling just a bit down after that game because first game of the season and you go out and a very close rival Belvedere and Railway have had this rivalry for a long time and would have had very tight, closely contested matches over the last number of years, and to see 50 points be shipped on Belvo is obviously not something that I want to see and the girls want to experience. And looking at it from another perspective, obviously Railway would be delighted, no fault to them. They got everything right. Their game plan was spectacular and spot on. They had massive amounts of experience there. They had a back row of, I think it was Claire Bowles, Lindsay Peat and maybe Keelan Brady, I think it was, who've been around a long time. And even just someone like Lindsay Peat alone, Claire Bowles has been in and out of 15 setup. She's a sevens sponsored or contracted athlete. She played the Olympics, to have that experience in the back line alone. And then you look at Elsa Hughes at 9 and you just think, wow, Belvedere, I would hope that they just had an off day, but judging by what I did see, they have a little bit of work to do. And they'll know that themselves, I'm not being overly harsh here, but if they really want to be competitive, they need to close up and shore up that defence very, very quickly. And I think another aspect of that is to not score a single point is really, really disheartening. So they'd be licking their wounds. They'd be looking to, kind of get that review over and done with, try and fix small things at a time and try and get some sort of a performance for next week's game because it just didn't happen for them last week. Railway looked very, very good. Old Belvedere just didn't look themselves, shall I say. And Tanya Ross would be pretty disappointed with that result. But I will say the one thing for Old Belvedere, no Railway have a few players involved as well. Old Belvedere are missing an awful lot of players because of WXV1. And they're nearly a victim of their own success that they've developed some of these players over the last number of years. And Evo Dowds, in particular Ruth Campbell, has really been a breakout player for them over the last couple of Irish games. they were fully involved last year for the AIL, and they're missing them, and that experience is gone. So hopefully when it's over, they come back in and they can add a little bit to this team. Dervla Nicovard back after an ACL too, so the only way is up for Old Belvedere after week 1.
Exactly, yeah. You'd hope they just brush themselves off and, on to the next. And I suppose, like Railway Union, they have the return of Aoife McDermott and Emma Fabi coming back from Australia. So maybe it's having those kind of players coming back in just brought them on a little bit more, would you say?
Yeah, look, they're obviously a well-coached team as well, and they've a lot of players who've been around a long time. Obviously, someone like Aoife McDermott coming back in, again, experienced Irish international, was playing over in Australia for a while there too and has come back in. But a lot of those players have been playing together a long time. They know exactly how they want to play. They know their systems. They trust each other in defence. And with the right coaching, you can get the best out of them. Probably with a lot of those Old Belvedere players, a couple of them new to the game or new faces to that particular team, so they're still trying to bed in. There mightn't be that trust there just yet. People mightn't have that familiarity with each other in terms of how they like to play. And maybe it'll just take a little bit more time for them to get that performance that they're looking for. But full credit to Railway Union. Obviously, truly deserved their win. But from a neutral perspective, we don't want to see 50+0 results in the game. So hopefully we can turn around and see a lot more competitive matches in the future.
Exactly. And say, what would you think that maybe Tanya Rosser is telling the Old Belvo crew now?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's tough for Tanya too, because obviously she was involved in the Interpros as well. So she's had a busy summer too, and a lot of players come back in. But I'm sure she's obviously trying to, fix some of the defensive errors and mistakes and attacking, issues that they had in a short space of time, while also, making sure the players realise that they're not bad players, that this can easily be fixed, and that, this weekend's another opportunity to show what we can do and brush off last week and kind of move forward from it, and that we can't change what's just happened, and she'll get coaching plans and coaching structures in place that allow these players to have the best opportunity to show the best of themselves.
Exactly. And just another match that had a bit of a differential in the score there. It was Suttonians 29 and Cook 7. So, certainly a match there with a bit of a difference. Yeah,
and look, I've talked about Cook before in kind of previous seasons. They've really struggled for the last number of seasons. They're the only team up north. They in fairness to them, no matter the results, they keep coming back each year, and the players they have a lot of returning players who give everything every single game. But Suttonians, unfortunately, in this instant, are a young team who've been obviously aided by the return of someone like Lauren Farrell-McCabe, who was off travelling, and for them, they play a really high tempo attacking brand of rugby that really focuses on their backs. Their forwards do a lot of work, but their backs have the flair and the skill. And they moved the ball a little bit too quickly for Cook, who just couldn't scramble in time and managed to run in a couple of tries without a huge amount of effort. Now, Cook, in fairness to them, they did get a score back and they fought to the very end, but they just haven't been able to get the performances in on a consistent basis. They do something really good in one section of the game, and then they'd, let in an easy or make an easy defensive error to allow another team in and undo all their good work. And they are trying, and I appreciate it's quite difficult for them at that time. So I really hope that, that was a little bit of a blip for Cook, and they can continue to try and grow and develop. And big thing for them is obviously player recruitment up north, and try get as many players up there playing for them as possible and widen their player pool and hopefully find some good talents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose again, with another coaching change there, Colin Keogh stepped in. Would that again be bringing on the team there?
Yeah, look, similar to the others. I suppose it depends on how he wants to coach, how he sees his players in certain positions. Like, for example, Lauren Farrell-McCabe, she is a feisty player who loves a tap and go. But, if he wants to play a slow tempo game, does that suit her? Does he want to play her at 9 or at 10 or at centre, even full back? So she's played various different positions, and she was playing the Interpros this year, obviously, as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he wants to coach. How does he get his best players involved that are there to get the best out of them, and then kind of what direction he takes them in. But I really do think Suttonians are a team that could break into the top 4 this year if they play to a consistent basis the way they did at the weekend.
Absolutely. And even not only like a new coaching change, but say Maeve O'Brien stepping up as captain, what can that again do for a team? Does that change maybe their motives as well?
Yeah, look, and again, it depends. Like, there are different types of captains that you have on the pitch. Obviously, some captains like to be a little bit more vocal and kind of use morale boosting and give confidence to other players. And then other captains, such as, say, Leslie Ring from Old Belvedere, is a captain who does and says, follow me, and gets stuck into tackles here and there. And so it really depends. I think a good captain will do a mix of both, but will also know how to nurture and bring on younger players or players who may be struggling with confidence or have just missed a tackle, you know, and how to make sure that everyone is feeling involved, and what is the relationship between her and the coach, and can they make sure that they're on the same page so that everyone feels included, everyone's going in the right direction, and everyone knows their role for the weekend. So I think the captain's role is so important. But, you know, different captains like to take it in different ways. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Absolutely. No, it's all very exciting. And speaking of the excitement, we've got Tullow, you know, they're making their debut into the Energia AIL season. So, and they went 14 with Wicklow at 34. So I suppose what's going to be the exciting thing for these players in the Tullow side, you know?
Yeah, obviously, this is going to be a really challenging year for Tullow. You know, and I don't think we can kind of skirt around that. They are newly promoted, first time playing AIL rugby, and that club has done an awful lot of groundwork over the last number of years with their development, their underage structures, then playing in the Leinster leagues and stuff like that, and they have been promoted and managed to keep a core group of players with them, so they already have that kind of community, that confidence, that morale boost that team here got them together, and I think their coaches stayed on as well, you know, and they'd be looking into the AIL season going, sure, why not? We've only been promoted. We've nothing to lose. Why not give it a go? And in fairness to them, they came up against a decent Wicklow side who were, you know, aided by the return of Ella. And, you know, Ella just back from an ACL, and I think she ran in a couple of tries or was very much involved in a couple of tries from full back. And Tullow, it's going to be a massive learning experience for them. I don't know if they'll get many wins. Obviously, the Cook game, they probably target a couple of games, and I would say the Cook game, if I was a coach, would be one that you target. It's not about the results at the end of the day for this team, in my opinion. It should be about, no matter the result, that we are playing our game plan, we are sticking to it, we are becoming consistent, and that everyone's on the same page, and that we are making small improvements every single week. No matter the sport or the league or whatever else, when any team makes that step up to the next grade, it is always a challenge, and it is about how you adapt, how resilient you are to what happens, and how you improve little by little and take on the learnings. And so for Tullow, well, I think they gave themselves a good account against Wicklow. There are much tougher challenges ahead, and the likes of UL Bows and stuff, and it's not to be too disheartened by the end results and scores and those, but about looking at the positives. What have we done well? How have we improved from last week? And how can we continue to get better as a newly promoted team? But it's brilliant to see new teams in there. I think it freshens the league up a little bit. You know, it's always nice for players to play new oppositions and travel new places. So I welcome it, and I think we should be bringing more teams in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose they're supported by experienced players like Grace Kelly and Catherine Dempsey as well. So they can really just build like a team atmosphere from the ground up, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw an interview, I think it was with Grace, who had just said basically that they're looking forward to the year. You know, it's something new for them. It's going to be this whole new experience. Everyone wants to play against the best players, and they're going to get an opportunity to do that and try to see if they can cut it. But they said that their main aim was to stay up in promotion and try, you know, win a couple of games. They obviously have aspirations and goals for themselves that they've set. But you never know. We might find some gems here that, you know, could potentially go on to play for Ireland, and we mightn't have seen them had they not been playing AIL. So I think it's brilliant. Brilliant for the league, brilliant for the women's game, and an exciting opportunity for all those players then at Tullow. And it brings a new fan base too, more eyes on the game.
Absolutely. Like Carla Cloney is one to mention, you know, like playing in the AIL, that's going to egg her on then to put on that green jersey at some stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I'm sure there's more than just Carla there that have these aspirations. It's just she's been one that obviously has been spotted as a potential future Irish player. But I think when you put players into the top leagues and playing against the best, that's when you see those who are able for it and cut for it. So Carla will obviously have lots of opportunities to show that she can cut it against, you know, players at an international level already, and hopefully she can help her team, you know, get some big wins, or at least some big performances throughout the season that they can be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we mentioned that maybe when you're an injured athlete, you have a little bit of extra time, you know, on your hands. And you mentioned Ella Roberts coming back from that ACL injury. So with that time, you know, to recover, what can that do for an athlete? I suppose mentally, you're a little bit fresher.
Yeah, look, like there's obviously injuries. A tough thing. Obviously you want to be playing and you want to help your team, and it's hard to watch from the sidelines, and there can be two parts about it. Like for some players who maybe have played an awful lot, the break can actually can be really good mentally, physically, all the rest, just focus on other stuff outside of sport. But for others, not playing can actually be really difficult and lonely, and they can quite struggle with their mental health. So you even know if you're on the ladder there, I would say that stay involved with your club, get involved with stats, get involved with analysis, help younger players, bringing them through, learn the roles, and you know, if you can obviously walk through them and help them on a more technical basis, you could still have a huge influence on your team without actually ever stepping foot on the pitch. So I think that's really important to mention, that just because you're not playing doesn't mean you're part of the team or part of the squad or part of any, you know, developments or steps or celebrations or wins that they're involved in.
No, that's very interesting, even to say about the analysis side of things. Like it's nearly an opportunity for them, maybe from a career standpoint, you know, to keep themselves busy outside of the game.
Yeah, look, I think it's so important to have something outside of sport, because as you said, it can end at any point, and you know, you don't want to be just tied to that one thing, because sport is so fickle, it's so up and down. But absolutely, for players who are so in love with the game and they might have an affinity for coaching, they might see things that other players don't, or they might be able to verbalise it a lot better than others. Absolutely, coaching, refereeing, you know, the lots of S&C, nutrition, lots of pathways are there in sport, and you're kind of opened up to them a little bit when you're playing within a team, and you can see exactly what that role entails. So definitely for a lot of those younger players, you know, it mightn't be something they ever thought of initially, but they saw, you know, that it was something that they might be interested in, and the door opens up for them.
Absolutely. And of course, on that Wicklow side, then we have the Griffey sisters. It's great to see when teams have that kind of family dynamic going through. So it's Caitlin and Rachel there. So are they two other players that we can keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I think I don't know what it is in Wicklow, but they managed to get an awful lot of sisters playing together. There's the Roberts sisters there as well, you know, but I think it's brilliant obviously when you have family connections, because I think it gets more people involved. But also, if you're playing with your sister, you've known them your whole life, you know exactly what they like, what they don't like. You might have this connection a little bit more and trust there that you know you wouldn't have with another player because you don't know them as well. But I just think it's really nice as a family connection to be able to, you know, the McDermotts have it in Railway as well, but to be able to get up in the morning of a game and know that you're going to be playing with your sister, your whole family might be coming out to watch, and you can just enjoy it like that. I think it's great. It brings on that whole idea of club as family. It really roots that in a little bit more, and Wicklow might take it to the extreme. I think they had 5 sets of siblings playing last year, so they really are family.
That's incredible, honestly. Well, look, it's been an exciting weekend of matches, and we're looking forward to the season ahead as well. But for now, we're going to have a look at. We chatted to some of the Energia AIL captains. They were to tell us about what their rugby ick is, and they sure had a lot to say. So do stay tuned for this, and we'll be right back.
Biggest rugby ick is either people who shout, "Look where we are," you know, when we're kind of approaching the try line. I'm always like, yeah, I know where we are. We're on the 22 in Donnybrook. Like, do you need an air code? Do you know when the ball's kicked through and the fullback doesn't catch it the first time and they kind of have to run after it and it's like bobbling up and they're running backwards? Yeah, I think it has to be that.
This is a really niche ick, right? But when there's a high ball that someone's kicked it, and instead of just catching it with your arms, you try to stop it with your foot and then pick it up and play.
When people throw the ball after they score a try and they throw it the whole way off, or even if, say, a decision doesn't go their way and they're throwing it on, we just set it down nicely. When people wear their gum shields all the time, like even when it's on play, and I'm going to give a shout out to Ruth Campbell for doing that.
You just see people walking normally across the pitch, like during like break and play, but they look like Charlie Chaplin walking. Like you know, like legs out.
Well, I suppose I'd have to agree with a few of the icks mentioned by the girls there, but you are very welcome back to the Her Sport Energia AIL rugby show here with myself, Lauren, and Hannah Tyrrell, as we're taking a look through this season's AIL League. So taking a look at the table so far, it's early days, but starting at the top of the table is Railway Union with 5 points, followed by Suttonians, Wicklow, UL Bohemians and Galwegians, all with 5 points. Ballincollig, Blackrock College, Tullow, Cook and Old Belvedere coming in behind them. And then just comparing that to last season's, we had UL Bows in first place with 72 points. Railway Union coming in second, Belvo in third, Blackrock College in fourth, Suttonians, Ballincollig, Wicklow, Galwegians and Cook all following in behind there on the tables. So the UL Bows, of course, are the winners from last year. How do you think they're fixed on retaining that?
Yeah, look, like I said, I think after 1 week it's very hard to figure out at the end of a long season who will be the eventual winners. But UL Bows did look strong, as did Railway, so based off round 1 results, my eyes would be on one of those two, with obviously Railway putting up a hefty score against poor Old Belvedere.
Of course, and I suppose coming off from the off season, as we chatted about earlier there, Cook unfortunately finished at the bottom of the table there last season. Do you think that'll be pushing them on this season now?
Yeah, look, I would hope so. Unfortunately for them, as I said, they've had a rough couple of years. I think with the emergence of Tullow in this new league, there might be a little bit of a battle there for the two of them to see who can avoid being bottom of the table. And it gives Cook, I suppose, an opportunity to really show that they are at a different standard to Tullow, who have obviously just been promoted, but they still have a ways to go. You know, I still think they're just slightly below the likes of the Suttonians and the Galwegians and stuff. So it might be a battle between Tullow and Cook for bottom of the table, unfortunately.
Of course. And I suppose Suttonians, like you said, were sitting there in the middle of the table. So what kind of way do you think they'll be approaching this season? Yeah,
look, as I said, they've the return of a couple of players, who've been travelling and got a lot of interprovincial experience in the summer. I think, based on what I've seen the weekend, I think they have an opportunity to break into that top 4, but their problem over the last number of years has been consistency. They'd play really well in one game and then almost collapse in another game, or they'd have patches in some games where they're doing really well and then it just doesn't happen, or they can't kind of finish out the game. But I think if any team is going to break into the top 4, I think it could be them, which is obviously brilliant to see. We want to break up that little top 4 a little bit, and have a change up, which is nice. But a lot of teams will be vying for that 4th position.
And would it be fair to say that there's kind of 3 tiers to the Energia AIL League, and how do you kind of, I suppose, shake that up?
Yeah, it's probably more likely to be 2 tiers almost, with the top 4 and then kind of the rest. But it is changing. Look, coaching, development, new players coming through, new styles of coaching and how they want to play is a big thing. But as we mentioned, a lot of coaching, I think, is the big one, and how you want to play and knowing how to adapt against certain teams. Like, you might play one coaching style of defence against Railway, but play a different style against Blackrock, and the best teams are able to adapt, and do it quite well. So I think whatever team can do that will obviously have the most success this year. But I still think there's probably a top 4, top 5, and then a bottom 4/5. Unfortunately, I wish that wasn't the case and anyone could win it and anyone could come bottom, but we're just not quite there yet. But look, Tullow's such a young team, Wicklow's still such a young team. Suttonians, I think, are only going 10 years, which is not really a long time. So the longer these guys are in the AIL and getting that experience and getting that coaching and the foundations of the game, the more they'll be able to really compete at the top.
Absolutely, and like you said, with the coaching changes, you never know who might come out and surprise us all.
Yeah, and particularly obviously with new young players emerging from each team because of these underage structures. You might have a gem who's currently playing under 16, and in 2 or 3 years, they'll be your star player and change the game for you.
Absolutely. And I suppose anybody who's watching this season who may not have before, who are some familiar faces that they might recognise and to look out for?
I suppose someone like Aoife Wafer, if she was to come back, would be a huge one. Dana O'Brien plays for Old Belvedere, would be another. Chisholm Aguero plays for UL Bows, was a flyer on the wing last year. Nicole Fowley for Galwegians at 10. Plenty others. I've Leslie Ring for Old Belvedere as well. Obviously Lindsay Peat is probably the most known, or one of the most known female athletes in Ireland today for Railway Union. So there's plenty out there for people to watch, and plenty of teams around Ireland for people to support as well if they don't know who to choose. And if they want to pick a new one, Old Belvedere is there for them to follow.
Of course, no biases here. And we might just break into a little quick fire style questions if that suits you.
Yeah, cool.
So the first one there is the top try scorer.
Top try scorer. These are all going to be wrong. I got none right last year. I'm going to say Emma Tilley for Old Belvedere.
Brilliant. Biggest breakout star.
She's technically a breakout already, but Faith Avaway has been incredible and still so young, so I'm going to pick her for Railway.
Okay. Outstanding fly half.
Kay Flannery is a youngster who's going to be incredible.
Okay. Standout player of the year. That's a big one.
Lindsay Peat manages to make her mark on almost every game. So hopefully, well, I won't say hopefully her, but probably her.
Most surprising team.
Suttonians.
A deadly duo in a team.
There's two big ones for me. Ailsa Hughes at 9 and Lindsay Peat at 8, or Kay Flannery at 10 and Chisholm Aguero on the wing.
Okay. Best defender?
I don't know how much she'll play. Aoife Wafer if she plays enough, but hopefully on a more consistent basis post-injury, I'm going to give that mantle to Derv Nicovard and hope she steps up to it.
Okay. And an underdog to root for?
Cook. Why not?
Yeah.
Cook or Tullow. Why not?
Yep. Semi-finalists?
Railway, UL Bows. And I can't pick the other two, so I'm going to pick 3 because I think it'll be between these 3 of Blackrock, Belvo and Suttonians. But I think Suttonians might shake things up this year.
Okay.
From a Belvo point of view, I hope I'm wrong. From a neutral, good for the league, I hope I'm right. Or some other team.
Brilliant. And the big one, the overall winner?
Week 1 predictions never work. But based on what I saw, Railway.
Okay.
But that's going to be wrong and I'm okay with that.
No, I support that. Yep. Well, that's brilliant, Hannah. Well, thank you very much for all of those, and we'll have to see how it all finals out in the last few weeks. But look, like you said, it's early days, so it's very hard to predict all these things. But of course, we better take a look at the upcoming matches ahead of next week. So first of all, we have the Ballincollig versus Suttonians at 3 p.m. in Tanner Park. Cook versus Tullow then at 5 p.m. in Shaw's Bridge. Old Belvedere versus Blackrock College at 5 p.m. in Ollie Campbell Park. Bohemians versus Railway Union at 5 p.m. in UL. Wicklow versus Galwegians at 5 p.m. in Ashtown Lane. And of course, for anyone who can't go to the matches, how can they keep up with the game at the weekend?
Yeah, most games are streamed by the club themselves. And obviously, as you said, if you can get to the games, brilliant. You're going to get some outstanding skill on show. And then the games are streamed live. And if you miss that, obviously Irish Rugby put the Energia AIL highlights on their website too. So plenty of opportunities. Shouldn't miss it.
Brilliant, really. No, definitely not. Get your tickets. Very important. Will you get to go to some of the Belvo matches now?
I hopefully over the season I will. Yeah, I'd hope to bring Aoife down to cheer on some of the girls. finals this weekend. Unfortunately, I'm working, so I'll have to try catch it on the live stream on the sly.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. And of course, everyone can keep up with us on our social media platforms across Instagram, TikTok, and especially on YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed and keep commenting and liking. And of course, we will catch up with you all again next week. Thank you for joining the Her Sport Energia AIL Rugby Show.